Ryan, you started the episode by teasing the audience by saying there was a Jets bet you made, offensive player of the year. Let's start there. What do you like in that market?
Yeah, this was maybe what 2 trips ago we were out. This was when we were grinding out the morning shift on VSiN.
Oh yeah,
which is Breece. So maybe a little delirious after the show, but took a little of the Breece Hall. We don't brag about closing line value here, but you can still get it at 15-1 at DK, and I know Circus still has an 18-1.
Okay,
I believe so.
So I'll put you down for
you put down whatever you want to put down, Sean. I know what the paper in my pocket says 20-1.
Breece Hall, offensive player of the year, 18-1. Yeah, no, I like that.
Well, Adam made the point earlier about the touchdown regression. Like if there's just a little bit of touchdown regression in this offense, and he's right about the run game being the larger benefactor, then it seems pretty obvious. Because man, Breece, if you go back and look what Breece Hall did last year, it's almost forgettable. Or it shouldn't have been forgettable, but I did not remember it being so like statistically significant. So if that offense takes a step forward, he's very much in the mix. And I know it's a wide receivers award mostly if you're not named Christian McCaffrey, but it kind of seems like Breece Hall is going to be the #1 fantasy pick next year, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to get Adam's take. You can get Breece Hall at 18-1
versus Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson, I'm kind of making a case for, I think, for offensive player of the year, because if you look at Aaron Rodgers seasons in the past, what he's done to Devontae Adams, the fact that if you look at offensive player of the year, I kind of handicap it as who is winning a bunch of people their fantasy leagues. And if you're getting Garrett Wilson where you're drafting him right now in fantasy and he goes off and has, maybe 15 receiving touchdowns, which I think is certainly possible, I think he's going to be in the mix for offensive player of the year. And our buddy Aaron Rodgers, the media seems to battle with him a lot. I think it's maybe a way of rewarding Aaron Rodgers and the Jets without actually having to check that ballot box for Aaron Rodgers. So
there you go.
What is your take on Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, offensive player of the year?
Well, think about this with Breece Hall. The Jets last year started 14 different offensive line combinations.
Yeah,
that was the most in the NFL by a mile. Breece Hall was coming off a year where he had a brutal leg injury. And what did Breece Hall do last year? He was first in running back receiving yards. He was 13th in total running back rushing yards. He was 3rd overall in the NFL for yards from scrimmage. Yet he scored just 9 touchdowns all season long. So it's a perfect point. You're talking about more touchdowns coming to the Jets. It's not unrealistic to say there's going to be 15 more touchdowns. There's probably going to be more. If Hall's in on 40% of those, like he was last year, and you're getting him to 14, 15 total touchdowns, and he has a similar yards from scrimmage type of season, he's going to be at McCaffrey numbers. That's where he's going to be. And I have a pretty good feeling the Jets aren't starting 14 different offensive line combos again. And
knock on wood, Adam. Knock on wood. It's a long season.
There's 3 other games last year where they could have started a different combo to run the table. But I think that there's certainly, I see all the upside for Breece Hall. At this point, the way that the odds have shifted, I would, if I had to place a bet today, I would be placing a bet on Garrett Wilson if I had to choose between the two. Yeah. Just because the ties to Aaron Rodgers, he speaks about him like he's Devontae Adams. And we know some of the numbers that Adams put up in this offensive system with Rodgers and Hackett back in Green Bay. And so I think you would play into that upside if picking between the two. But tickets on Breece Hall up to this point have been pretty strong.
Yeah, so I'll go Garrett Wilson, Ryan. I did find you a Breece Hall at 20-1 over on FanDuel. So get you the best number there. Adam, so I got you down for over 9.5 wins. What else in the futures market are you getting down on? Maybe some stuff you've already given out that you'd like to reshare here. What do you like in the Jets future market?
Yeah, so you got the win total over 9.5. Division plus 185.
Nice.
Is a price that I would look for to win the AFC East. And then I think if you look for conference prices right around 9-1, I still think those are worth a look too if you want a bit of a longer shot. I don't think I'm going near the coach of the year stuff with Robert Salah. I think there's some better other candidates in that market. And then, like we just talked about, for Offensive Player of the Year, if we're looking at other awards, if I had to do it today, I'd be looking at Garrett Wilson, but I've played Breece Hall myself. So
All
I
right,
think
so
the Wilson prices today are worth looking at. So I have some futures here definitely tied into it. I think that point on Rodgers was very valid, where he's a tough guy to touch for awards too, because that's a tough vote to
yeah,
cast.
I mean,
for sure.
I think just the scenario for him to get. Now I know he's like favored in comeback player of the year. He's certainly super high.
He'd have to save someone's life.
I'm not like almost like Lassie, like someone, so a kid falls down in a well and Aaron Rodgers saves him or something.
Even that's it's got to be multiple wells and multiple incidents to really kind of get this. One well's not going to do it for Rodgers.
Vaccine denier Aaron Rodgers saves kid from well, and that would be the headline.
Yeah, he still would catch the shade.
So I like any defensive futures jumping out at you, Adam. Maybe someone to lead sacks, defensive player of the year, any stuff on the defensive side you find intriguing.
So that's interesting now with the Reddick stuff going on. So again, like, I don't know what to expect from it now. Until yesterday, I was under the impression that this deal would get done and he would be there. And like, Reddick is completely 100% in line, if he plays, to be the sack leader for the team. There's no question about it. He's going to be the guy that falls into that role. Now, if you take him out of the equation, the edge rush, there's not a lot there. That's going to take a big hit, especially since Huff is gone from what he did last year. So there's going to be a big hole there. If Reddick doesn't sign, I'm kind of inclined, as much as this pains me to do, if I was to see a Williams prop under, he's obviously very good from the interior of the line, but if there's not a threat at edge rusher, there's going to be able to be more attention put in the middle of the offensive line from teams to block up Williams. And that could be kind of an interesting wrinkle. So I'd say I'm in a holding pattern a little bit. Let's see if that deal gets done. But if there's no Reddick, I don't think Williams is going to have as prolific of a season getting sacks.
Last undefeated team, Jets.
Yeah. What is that at, Ryan?
I'm seeing a 20-1.
Oh man,
it's a 1-game bet. If they get through San Francisco, that number is way, way, way higher for the Jets.
Yeah. My only thing that scares me about them week one is looking at that card. There's always a trendy dog. Do you think the Jet? I mean, I love fading the 49ers, but I worry maybe the public is going to be all over.
Super Bowl hangover trend, very obvious.
Yeah, well, but again, I love hating on the 49ers, so I'm sure I will be playing Jets money line. I guess my concern is when as we know, public dogs have fleas, and that's my only concern about that first game. Are you looking up the splits there, Adam?
I'm pulling up week one and looking just blind at dogs.
Like who is the trendy dog week one?
You mentioned it, and the Jets certainly stand out. I would say probably the next one that stands up would be. I'm looking at
Cardinals,
the Eagles, and that's
Eagles.
that's the Friday game, right?
Yeah.
In Brazil against Philly. So that's probably not going to take the full account for it. The Jets might turn out to be it. You're right.
But I'll because I agree with Adam's take. Last winless 20-1, a small sprinkle on that one. Kramer, you're pulling the trigger?
If we're gonna play the money line at 2-1 or whatever it is, we might as well play this
free
at
roll
20-1.
into 20-1. All right, Ryan, what do you got for underdog, higher, lower? I like Garrett Wilson. I know it's higher than what he's done previously. Obviously, different quarterback situation, but I'll go Garrett Wilson higher. 7.5 receiving touchdowns. Kind of pair with my Garrett Wilson offensive player of the year. I think he's certainly going to be in the mix for that. And you gotta get the touchdowns, you gotta get the numbers, but I think he's certainly going to get a ton of looks from Aaron Rodgers in the red zone and just in general. So 7.5 feels pretty doable for him. What do you got, Kramer?
Reddick's number at underdog is 10.25, by the way. So I guess monitor that situation, but no, it's you can kind of just play any of the Breece Hall or Garrett Wilson angles, in my opinion. I mean, look what Garrett Wilson did yardage wise with not Aaron Rodgers. I mean, what do you think is going to happen with Aaron Rodgers throwing in the ball? The number is 1225.5, so it kept me away. I did the Breece Hall touchdowns. 7.5 rushing touchdowns, and he had 5 last year. If the offense gets better, the offense is in the red zone more. If the offense is in the red zone more, Breece Hall is going to have more opportunities to score rushing touchdowns.
That's
so we'll
it.
take the higher on 7.5. Simple systems sometimes.
So Breece Hall higher 7.5. You said,
and if he gets 10 receiving touchdowns and I get kicked in the nuts, all right, he wins the offensive player of the year, and I'm happy. Anyway.
So be it. Adam, what about you? Any other final plays you want to toss out for the Jets? Any final thoughts here?
I'll give you a couple just numbers that I have from just aggregate projections that I put together. Hall was projected for 8 rushing touchdowns, 1,050 yards rushing, another 550 receiving. So he's right at that 1,600 yard from scrimmage mark. And he's also catching 3 touchdowns. So it's 11 total for Hall. And then Wilson was projected 1,140 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns. That was a touchdown and a half higher than that 7.5.
Yeah.
So
so
was maybe would agree a little bit more with the Wilson touchdowns. The one like worry with Hall, I guess, is he's such a prominent receiving back where that's going to kind of be competing against himself if you bucket it into rushing or receiving. There's also
maybe
Allen,
try and
the
find the
rookie.
total touchdowns.
Yeah. So if that was a total number, I'd be all over it.
And for our buddy CJ, aka Man in the Box, Braylon Allen, offensive rookie of the year, 100 to 1.
He is enormous in that preseason game against Washington. That is a large physical running back.
He looks good with the number 0 too.
Well, and Ryan, maybe that is something you have to be slightly concerned about if you're on the Breece Hall stuff. Like maybe they use him near the goal line.
You're saying just in case a rookie of the year ticket.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we'll be out there with CJ in Vegas for sign up weekend. In
ultimate
10 days.
Contest weekend.
I guess I'll pick up a little pizza bet there.
All right. Just take a quick look at our projections. What we got here, some of the plays, all coming in at 10 and 7, all like the over 9.5 wins. Adam also making a case for the division. AFC did have Breece Hall offensive player of the year at some point.
What could go wrong with this screenshot for everybody taking it right now? My goodness, we committed to all of this.
Yeah, well, you know,
we're fans. This is
you got us on the Jets bandwagon, Adam. What could go wrong?
You know.
I'm on the bandwagon, and it's the waist seat belt, and then it's the chest harness. Like I'm strapped all the way in on this thing.
When is the last time you felt this good? I mean, you have to feel. I mean, I guess it was probably last year, but this year feels a little different.
I'll tell you what. The last time that I felt joy as a human being watching a football game for non-monetary reasons was January 2011. That was the last time, and that was when the Jets won in the playoffs, and they haven't been back to the playoffs since. That was a beautiful day, and there's been just zero joy since. So if this is the year, 13 years later, I'll be a very happy person.
This is a great stat for you, Adam. I didn't get to it earlier, but Mark Sanchez has more playoff wins than Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, Derek Carr, and Kirk Cousins combined. So there you go.
Those are glorious years.
The glory
they really were.
Of Mark Sanchez. Hey,
Rex Ryan was the man.
Could Aaron Rodgers be a poor man's Mark Sanchez essentially?
Did you guys see Rex Ryan on The Amazing Race?
Oh no. How
that
was it?
Shattered, because I grew up watching him and the Jets, and it was my team, and I loved it. And then you just see this large man on The Amazing Race running through some country, sweating and struggling to move. It was just a soul crushing thing to see as an adult 15 years later. So that was, you bring that up, and I hear his name now, and it used to be just a beautiful memory, and now it's just really gone in my mind. But Sanchez still lives on strong.